Good evening, everyone. This is Edwin Williams with Jazz Matters, Inc. and the Jazz Matters podcast, of course. We're here with Vaughn Coulter from Jazz Beats Radio, and our special guest is Louis Heriveaux,
Hey,
composer, piano player. I seen him. I looked at him when he was growing up, so I know he's got a lot to say. You know, if I might, before we get started, I want everyone to subscribe. Also, I want you to like us and have a visit at yesjazzmatters.org. That way you can find out everything there is to know about Jazz Matters. We also have a Jazz Matters store, so you can buy that new Jazz Matters t-shirt that I know you really want to get out and wear this year. But they also have sweatshirts and hoodies and all kinds of good stuff. And it's all relevant to the jazz that we are trying to keep, the heritage. And you can see one of the shirts here that I have, but go online and go to the Jazz Matters store. That's yesjazzmatters.org. Also, we are a 501c3, so we take donations. And what better nation in the world than donation? You know, we want to take those. And we also want you to, like I said, subscribe, and tell a friend to tell a friend. We're going to go ahead and get into it, where we can talk to Louis here. And Louis, for all the people that don't know, can you just tell us how you got into this business and exactly, you know, like where you're from and how you got into it? What made you go this direction with the music?
okay. Well, my mom started me on piano at 3 years old, but it was from a classical perspective. And I played classical piano as far as I can remember. I don't remember not playing piano. And what happened is along my life, I would hear like Mr. Rogers and Charlie Brown and hear this instrumental music, piano music and other instruments. And I always had a desire to play that, but where I lived at that time wasn't access. I wasn't around it. I used to think it was written out.
Okay.
But my mom, I would ask my mom to get music like that because I wanted to play some stuff like that. And, you know, I guess being a little kid, that wasn't taken but so serious. So my classical stuff continued. I got to high school here in Georgia by that time. I was born in New York. I was raised in Tampa to about high school age. When I got to and in Tampa, I wasn't around jazz at all. When I got to high school, I started to win a few competitions, and one of the things I did in high school in Georgia is I made this program called Governor's Honors. And what they do is they take the top 10% in each field in the state and send them to a college campus and let them experience whatever their field is with experts to guide them. And my field was music, classical music. But while I was down there, I got exposed to what jazz really was. You know, there was a jazz part of it. I was in the classical part. So I took jazz as an elective. They allowed me to do that. And I found out about improvisation and really found out what was going on. Met other kids my age that could play. And really, before that point, I wasn't planning on being a musician in life. I planned on being a pharmacist. But when I got exposed to jazz, I fell in love and went home after that summer. It was the summer before my 12th grade year. And I was so hungry that I shed it and I made Jazz All-State that year. I beat out the guy that made it every year for the past few years. And it just felt like a part of me from that point on. I fell in love with it. I went to Georgia State and got introduced to the scene a little bit and been doing it ever since, you know, teaching and playing and all of that.
Right. So when you were younger and you were doing at the school that you were doing the performing arts that you were doing before you actually graduated. Uh, where exactly was that, in Florida or was that in New York?
When I went to Governor's Honors, that was
Yeah,
in Georgia.
in Georgia.
That was
Okay.
in Georgia. Yeah, yeah, yeah. By that time, I was in Georgia.
All right. So, and you've been pretty much in Georgia since then, right?
Yeah, I've been a Georgia resident since then. Yeah.
So if I might ask, in your classical background, okay,
Mhm.
what
Yeah.
is the the thing you take away that you can uh, actually still feel comfortable in a jazz background? Because of course, there are two different concepts. And the thing is, what is it that you take away and put into your? Is it the chordal situation, or is it more the a linear situation for your lines and so forth?
Well, I think playing classical music is not the only way, but it is a great way to develop uh, your relationship with your instrument. You know, it teaches you about technique, but it also teaches you about touch and expression, how to create moods, how to create vibe. You know, one hand should be loud, the melody should be brought out louder in accompaniment with the left hand. But so having an intimate relationship with the piano, being an extension of your voice, can really be developed when dealing with such a serious music like classical music. And I use it all the time in jazz, you know, from technique to musical expression to touch to all of those things. So, you know, technique, fingering, and so when I started learning lines and developing solos and stuff, that came in handy for me,
Yeah, I
you
can
know.
imagine.
Yeah. So,
And like as far as in the jazz field, who are some of the piano players that you like listening to develop where you are now?
okay, well, the first guy that I got introduced to was at Governor's Honors. Somebody introduced me to not in person now, to his music,
Yeah.
to Oscar Peterson, and
Mm.
that was it for me. For
Mm-hmm.
the first maybe year or so, I only would listen to Oscar Peterson. I didn't care about no other piano players. That was
Yeah,
it.
that was a good one.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah,
Now I didn't have the
exactly.
I didn't have the
You didn't go
technique to.
wrong there.
Right, that's right, that's right. I didn't have the technique to play his stuff because he was so far advanced. But eventually, after studying, I could play the lines, and I did something that was uh, that was probably smart, but I didn't know I was being smart, which was to really start to learn lines from the bass player because the bass player was more accessible to my technique level as it dealt with
Mm-hmm.
jazz. So a lot of my first solos and first transcriptions was of Ray Brown
Okay,
because I
that's
couldn't
cool.
handle the stuff that Peterson was playing.
I understand. I understand.
You know, so it was a journey. Yeah.
Now, when you returned on to Oscar, did when did Art Tatum come into the picture?
Later, eventually, I started to hear things that uh, I realized there's other bad stuff too, and so the next guy really that I started, and so I had an unorthodox, you know, not having a real person to introduce you to, and I wasn't in the environment yet of jazz, so the next person that really got my attention was Kenny Kirkland. And then after I
Yeah,
listened to Kenny
yeah.
Kirkland, then I started to hear other things. Then I
Right.
started to recognize like lineages, like how Kenny Kirkland developed from like Herbie and Chick, and then Oscar
Mm-hmm.
Peterson at that point developing from Nat King Cole and Art Tatum, and
Yeah.
those connections, and that really inspired me wanting to shed and have influence and keep in the tradition and keep in the lineage of the music going. You know,
Mm.
Yeah,
yeah.
and we talk a lot of here about the missing element for, like, for instance, for a lot of the young musicians that are out here now. Uh, there's an element there that they tend to kind of like not really be exposed to, which
Yeah.
when I think they really should be. And like the way you got yours, it was easier for you to adapt to, of course, Oscar, because he plays as if he was a classical pianist that turned jazz, you know what I'm saying, which he probably was. And the thing
Right.
is, but, you know, when it comes to the younger players now, they seem to like the speed that a piano
Right.
player plays and get it confused with, you know what I'm saying, the evolution of the music.
Right. Right.
What do
Right.
you think about that? What would you tell young people really, as far as that? Because like I said, a lot of them have it's almost like you're eating the icing off the cake, but you never taste the cake.
Right.
See
Right.
what I'm saying? So, what would you tell them? You know, now that you've actually experienced and have been in both genres, what it is that you think that they're missing. Now, don't get me wrong. There are a lot of young players that can really play,
Yeah.
but the concept of what they're doing seems to pretty much drift right back up towards a more of a chops player. You know what I'm saying? So in
Yeah.
other words, their
Mhm.
chord voicing is it seems to be limited for whatever reason. Where you know in jazz, the voicing of your left hand is real crucial to that concept or modal concept. If you're playing in a modal concept, uh, to actually get into the keyboard, your improvisation has to change. You know, the people around you, like you say, you get a lot from the bass player. Where if the bass player is a modal player, right, and he seems to like that concept of playing, that takes you somewhere else. So with the young folks, they seem to be into a more of a vamp type of player. You know what I'm saying? Where you're only soloing on one chord, maybe two, you know what I'm saying? But there's nothing in there that's changing the expression necessarily of the music. So how would you go about teaching young people how to actually get into the improvisation that way?
Well, I have a couple observations. Uh, I was fortunate in Atlanta. It depends on the scene you're on, too. And Atlanta's scene right now for straight ahead jazz is unfortunately not the best. You know, well, I'll explain what I mean. Uh, I was fortunate to be kind of on the tail end of the environment being really the teacher. You know, so I could go hear Johnny O'Neill, I could go hear Paul Mitchell, I could go here and see and hear and see with my eyes what stuff that happens, the intangibles, and get concept, so that you cannot get just from listening to a record. Uh, so with the coming of YouTube in this generation, I think that there's pluses and minuses. So part of the pluses, of course, is to have access to videos of everybody from John Coltrane to whoever to study from. But if you don't have, like, you can miss a lot just from hearing a recording or seeing a video, but rather than to actually experience on the bandstand playing with your elders, you know, the cats that were older, just see stuff that happened and realize, oh, I missed that. That's a thing. Like, you might not even recognize that is a thing uh, from a record. Like, something happened and you didn't even know that that's something is that you should be hip to. You know what I mean?
Right,
So it's all
exactly.
kind of nuances that's starting to be missed. So
Hmm.
so having places to go and play with older folks that have more experience was the main way to get that. So this generation, I think they're stuck in YouTube and that kind of stuff, and they don't have the same amount of reverence and respect for the older that we did. You know, we used to go get our heads chopped off by the older cats and go home and shed and go observe and you mess up and go home feeling bad one day, then one day you got it. You did some stuff, and that kind of relationship is not as much now. So I would suggest to young folks to seek out going to hear cats that are older. Even like when I would go see cats, maybe it wasn't John Coltrane, but it was somebody who had the experience and had vibe and had energy and had stuff to say and had those nuances that I wanted to be hip to. So when I play with younger cats, they a lot of times they seem to miss those things.
Exactly.
And
that was my point for the most part.
Yeah, and then other things become more important to them, like what you're saying is a lot of chops and stuff. Like I like chops too, but you got to have that other stuff, that other meat, that that's part of the tradition.
You can't eat pork chops. You have to do lamb chops sometimes.
Right.
Pork chops not all the time. You do some lamb chops sometimes.
Right.
And sometimes you don't get no chops at all.
Right.
You're left with the mustard greens and a little ham hock in there.
Right.
It happens,
Right.
Yeah. Well, see, that was the real thing. Is like what you were saying. Exactly what I was thinking. And since you think about it that way, also, that was great. It's the essence of live performers that have been on the scene. That is really something you can't teach, but you can learn so much. I mean, it can't be taught to you, but you can learn so much from that.
Right.
It's just that essence. They know how to capture a moment. I mean, when you capture a moment in time, of course you can't go back and recreate it. But at least if you were there when it was happening, hey, you go home, like you said, you start sharing on your approach to the same thing you heard. And make it yours after that.
Right.
That's cool, man. Vaughn,
I would say, to a young cat, seek out older musicians in live situations to really peep out the language, the communication between folks. And if you don't have that, then if you don't have the environment being the teacher, then having a teacher, period. That's from the tradition. That's risen in importance. Like I didn't have a jazz teacher, right? I had the environment, but if I didn't have the environment, I would have wanted the teacher that was there that could show me the stuff, a lot of the stuff. Yeah. So anyway, that's my spiel about that.
So I know Vaughn got quite a few things to ask you. So go ahead, Vaughn, and like I said, we're gonna get all of it today.
I'm sorry. Hold on one quick second. I'm sorry.
Yeah, and Vaughn, we were talking about that many times on the fact that the essence of being at a live performance, and how you actually take that as a musician, and you kind of really start trying to communicate, with that spirit. And I know you do the same thing when you were into like acting and so forth.
Right.
Doing stuff with theater, television.
I'm so sorry about that. It's something I had to handle.
Yeah, as long as you didn't break nothing, you're all right.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, Vaughn.
Yeah.
Yeah, that you're right, Edwin. I mean, you learn from people who have captured through their expertise, their learning, their training, their playing in the hood, playing amongst individuals that, when you get that inner city knowledge, it's like the craft of a basketball player playing in the hood, and he's playing with a bunch of old cats who have skills that, come along once in a lifetime, and he picks up from them. It's the same thing with a jazz musician. You're playing in those clubs, you're playing in those communities that the culture is rich and plentiful, and
Right.
you end up growing from that, and you're able to take that with you wherever you go.
That's
And it's
right.
something that these young cats really haven't grasped yet.
Mhm.
When you talked about some stuff that when I was a young pup on the stage doing, theater, you know, the Thomas Birds that I learned from, the Famo Omalamis that I learned from.
Mhm.
We other actors, that were my age, we used to sit behind the curtain off stage and watch these guys work and just
Right.
learn. And you say like,
Right.
wow, their instincts, their
Right.
their ability to evolve in a split second, and their emotional quality is so genuine and authentic. Those things that you can't. I mean, if and yet still a lot of that stuff has to be in you from the beginning, you know.
Yeah.
And
Mhm.
and and when you see these people work like that, it only triggers your natural abilities. So
Right.
I'm impressed with I'm impressed with where you came from, especially from that classical background, Louis, and and those people that you kind of you know when Edwin and I have talked about Art Tatum before,
Oh
and Art
yeah.
Tatum, he's he was just he was just an unreal cat, he
Unreal.
just, oh my gosh, and
Yes.
I try to talk to people about Art Tatum, and knowing that he was blind, what was he tapping into? That's the thing that got me.
Mhm.
His brilliance was just, it was just phenomenal,
It really
and
was.
it's just my admiration for you from the classical all the way up to now. I want to ask you the question about, and the music, as you relate to it now, um, because there's the understanding that you just made, that mainstream jazz, you know is just not as prevalent, or it's not in demand as it used to be.
Yeah.
It's been taken over by smooth jazz. So where do you stand in comparison to that? Because a lot of jazz artists have had to drift toward that area in order to you know be financially set.
Right.
So how do you, what is it that you're trying, you try to do with what you, if you're in the studio recording and all that, how do you adapt to that change?
Well, well, first of all, the music is so great. See, and this is what I was what I was talking about earlier. That when the music is great, I think there will be an audience for it. So when those intangibles, when those things that make it swing and vibe are present, there will be an
Hmm.
audience. That's my first belief. What's happening
Right.
is because there are not a lot of venues and people are starting to miss those things we were talking about. People hear that the stuff that's kind of mediocre, and that's an example of what jazz is for people who don't know any better. And so they'd be like, I don't
Hmm.
like this. I might be somewhere with some cats and some stuff is playing, and they're like, I don't really like this. I don't really like jazz. And I'm like, well, I don't really like this either, brother. you know, this is this don't have that thing that make me
It don't
you
have that
know,
thing. Yeah. Yeah.
right. So yeah, so I'll never forget. Like I used to play at the Crab House, and there was some nights.
Okay.
Yeah, it might be Taurus Mateen, it might be Elgin Manson, cats who could vibe and swing. Uh, there was some night, it was a brunch. It was some days where the people that were there were mostly, meat market people there to meet and mingle and socialize and all that. And they were, youngsters in their 20s, and
Hmm.
jazz
Hmm.
wasn't the popular music, But there were some days where the vibe and the energy and the swing would be so good that we had to have the place quiet, the Crab House
Right,
quiet. Do
right,
y'all remember the Crab House?
Yeah.
right.
So so if that
Yeah, I remember the Crab House.
okay, so if that can
Yeah,
be achieved in some place like that, then the music is great. So that's the first thing. The second thing, my problem with smooth jazz is the cats that have risen. Most of them aren't from the lineage. Like I don't mind backbeat stuff. Like all along the way, jazz music spawned every other kind of music, but the popular music also in turn started to influence jazz musicians. You know, uh, um, so my problem with the smooth jazz cats is because the audiences aren't hip to the lineage and the language. It has allowed a lot of cats that are not of the lineage and the language to
right,
rise and play
right.
this stuff that is not recognizable in my opinion as being jazz.
Mhm.
Every music has
Right.
elements that have to be present to be called that music. Just because I pick
Mhm.
up a guitar and we play on instruments that are associated with country music doesn't mean that country music fans are going to accept that as country music. That's how I feel about jazz. Like just because you're playing a
Right.
saxophone and the rest of the music sounds like R&B, is that jazz? I mean,
There you
don't we have more
I
respect
love
for
that.
of
I love that.
our art form than that? You know that.
Well,
So
you know,
that's my problem. So
yeah, as
if you're playing funky beats and backbeat stuff and it's vibe and it's got that lineage that I can hear these elements that's that showed you have studied and dealt with, and it just happens to be backbeat and funky or hip hop or something, I'm with it. I'm like, okay, this is
Right.
good stuff. It's just
Hmm.
the stuff that I don't recognize. I don't want to. I don't like calling it jazz. You know. So that's kind of my
Yeah.
take on
Yeah.
that. Yeah.
I understand completely. I understand completely because I can sit there and in the studio when I'm doing my jazz show, we have the ability to see exactly who's tuning in to the show. Now, I
Okay.
like to mix it. I like to mix it up. Yeah, it's a fascinating system that we have, and so it's fun
That's
to
good.
watch. And
Right.
and and where we can look across the country and around the world, we can see all of the little icons that pop up because people have, when they go to our webpage, that's how we find out who's listening and where they're coming from.
Beautiful. Yeah.
What country they're coming from. And
Nice.
so I like the mix in classic, and of course it is a smooth jazz station, so you have to do what's priority. But I like to
Oh.
mix in some classic, contemporary,
Uh huh.
stuff from the '50s in there.
Right. Mm-hmm.
I'll back up some Boney James with some Lee Morgan in a heartbeat. And
Amen.
so, but the thing about
Yeah.
it is, it's the fascinating part. It depends on which Lee Morgan song it is. But I know one time I actually did some, Freddie Hubbard, and then some, Elon Trotman, and it's just like you could tell the audience kind of like started backing away, leaving
Oh.
leaving this,
Oh yeah.
with the Freddie Hubbard, and it depended on what it
Right.
was, but I think
Mm.
to me it's Freddie Hubbard.
Yeah.
Without Freddie Hubbard, there would have been no Elon Trotman, or
Right.
you
Right.
know, or any of these cats that are playing today. So
Right.
it's this is where my process is to educate. I'm
Beautiful.
big on
Mm-hmm.
letting these people know that this music didn't start with Herbie Hancock.
Right.
You
Right.
know, it
Right.
started 100 some years ago. So you got to think about
Right.
all these musicians between that time period up to now that
Right.
you
Mm-hmm.
have to get used to hearing, especially if you're listening to my show, because I
Right.
believe in letting them know about the origins of what they're listening to. So
Amen.
I have a
That's good.
great
That's
time
good
with it,
work.
and it you got to have it. You got to have it because
Yeah.
this music is much more valuable to our culture than anything that I can think of right now.
Exactly. I agree with that.
But
I
that's
definitely agree
definitely
with
one of
that.
the things also, Juan, that you touched on, and it was the education part. Uh, I talked to a friend of mine, and yours also, Louis, Mr. Eric Vaughn.
Oh
Uh,
yeah.
he's over in Berlin,
Mhm.
and we were talking just before Thanksgiving. They were of course, they were shutting them down because of COVID. So he had plenty of time on his hands. So we basically started talking about music over there, how they were accepting it. And it was something very interesting. Uh, like, for instance, when I was overseas, the acceptance of jazz was totally different than it is now. And even before I was over there, it was different. Uh, Now, Eric sees the need to educate the audience or the people to accepting jazz and understanding it because things change over there just like they do here.
Right.
And the thing is, he noticed that there is kind of they're kind of dissing the acoustic jazz, and kind of going with, a moderate form of it, for the most part, and not really understanding, because his biggest gripe was people in there making too much noise. They have these conversations going on, like they're in the cafeteria or something, and they're not
Right.
really listening to straight ahead like they used to, you know,
Right.
decades before that. I
Right.
noticed myself that changing in the latter years of me being down at Dantes down the hatch. Uh, and it's strange because it was a good thing because I really learned where everything was going just being there. Like, for instance, I remember when everybody had a pager, and every now and then, you would hear a pager go off, in the place. But the people paid more attention to what you were doing. But
Right.
then when all of a sudden the pager was obsolete, and now you get images that you can go back, like texting and so forth.
Right.
It was amazing to me to see how much time people put into their phones when they went out. It's almost like you're out to, in a venue that has it's a restaurant, and B, get live entertainment. But I see so many young people come and sit in the area, and they text all night. And I had to wonder. I said, well, that's all about the education of. That's all about people focusing in on really what's going on. There's nobody there now to educate it. Like you as a musician, like you said, you would go and see people like Paul and other people play because you're getting something out of it. And plus, the audience was getting something out of it because they were a little bit more astute. They were a little bit better educated on it.
Right.
But it seems like once there was that fatal year when music was like almost banished from school, is that whole generation, is almost something that they really didn't give that much about because the culture was gone. So what do you think? Um, how do you see the culture changing? Do you think it'll be where we can get back to the acoustic end of it with the respect of the culture and the heritage? Uh, that was one of the main things I thought about when I was left Dantes to do, and me and my wife put Jazz Matters together, was aid to preserve the culture and the heritage. You see,
Right.
because that was something being lost, and we recognize that. So our platform is to continue to let acoustic players continue to develop and use their craft, but we haven't shut the door on all other music. It's just that there's a place for it in our situation. So do you see the culture changing anytime soon to get a better audience for the acoustics?
Well, I think that well, as I was talking about, like YouTube and that access of the internet is a double-edged sword. Um, there are quite a bit of youngsters that are that are that I see playing, the problem is, and I've been talking to a couple of friends of mine about trying to convince them to do this, is there's not really a centralized scene. There's no
Exactly.
there's
No
no
scene.
no places to go and play,
That's
and
right.
Yeah,
for them to
exactly. Yeah.
experience that. There's one place here that's jazz dedicated, and it's way out in Alpharetta, and
Yeah.
nobody's
Yeah.
going. So there's no place in the city
Right.
that's jazz dedicated. The,
Yeah.
the,
Because the last place was Dantes,
yeah,
and it
yeah,
stayed in business 45 years. It never changed. It was
right,
acoustic from day one for
right, right,
45 years.
right.
Mhm.
After I
So we,
came out of there, you know,
mhm,
it was like I was in a whole different world almost.
right,
Because
right,
I really, I had to actually reinvent my own self, you know, and
yeah,
it's not that I haven't done, but I've done a lot of electric stuff in the past, but it was much earlier. And if you think about it, I was down both at the Underground and Buckhead about a total of 23 years. That was 6 nights a week for 23 years, acoustic. See, so
yeah,
once that stopped, then I had to reinvent myself. Now that
right,
doesn't mean that I had to stop
Mhm.
doing straight ahead. It's just
right,
that nobody was actually calling for it. You may,
right,
like you said, you may have had one or two places. You
right,
know, I know
right,
that the place that you were working, that's what you guys were doing, and
right,
there was maybe only one other place, and now
yeah,
there's no place. You
right,
so
right.
so that's what I'm asking you. Do you think we're gonna get back to that scene on the acoustic end, even though we know that there's no place right now? But like say for instance with Jazz Matters, we're creating a platform. The platform has never changed for us. So therefore, we'll have that place, that platform for the acoustic musician. It's just that things are right now are on hold for everybody.
Right,
So we got to figure out really how to make it happen. You're going into some virtual stuff, and
right,
which you can do that now. We're actually doing a lot of research into the virtual performances and so forth.
right.
But culturally and for the heritage, do you see it changing, or do you think that there'll be enough of an audience to support it?
Yeah, I mean, I think so. Somebody just got to open up a place, and they see, because Dante's didn't close because lack of uh customers.
Oh no, no,
Church Churchill didn't close because of lack of
right.
customers. Both of those spots were kind of driven out by the owner of the property wanted, from my understanding with Dante's too, but from the owners of the property wanting to do something different.
Well, see,
You
well,
know,
let me. With Dante's, that wasn't
uh-huh.
the case. I said with Dante's,
Oh,
that wasn't the case. The difference was the city itself was the ones forced Dante out. You see what I'm saying?
Mm.
this,
Dante owned the property, and he didn't want to move. Period. The
oh,
city
wow,
pressured him by overtaxing him
wow,
for his own, on his own land. I mean, they
right,
had
Mm.
40-story buildings that surrounded the place, and they
right,
wanted him to pay the same taxes as a 40-story building. He only had 8,000 square feet. You see
right.
what I'm saying?
Yeah, yeah,
So he was only forced out because he got tired of the fight. In other words,
right,
he had to fight that administration. And he never had to fight the previous administration. They all looked at it as an institution, a tourist
right,
a place. But the last administration, before he left, they fought him tooth and nail, and they got it to the point to where they were driving him out. As a matter of fact, where they call it the Waldorf Astoria, where it is now.
yeah, uh-huh,
So
Yeah.
they also wanted that land back then. He wouldn't
right,
sell it. You know what I'm saying?
right,
He wouldn't
hmm,
sell it. So what they had to do was that. I don't know if you know this or not, but that's the tallest building on the smallest piece of land in the country.
Wow.
You see,
I didn't know that.
and that's because Dante never sold. He didn't want to sell out. Period.
Right.
So it wasn't that he wanted to do anything different. They wanted to do something different to him.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm saying. Like these places didn't close because they weren't doing well. They
Yeah.
closed because outside sources
Yeah,
forced them to
all
close.
the land grab is
So
what I call
yeah.
it. It was a
I
big
tell you.
land grab
So
around.
so I've been trying to convince some people I know who have the revenue to do a spot. You'll have no um competition right now.
That's true.
And people out there would
Yeah.
like to hear that. I believe that, you know.
Yeah.
You know.
Well, we might have to get together and we might have to talk to those people at the same time. You know what
Yeah,
I'm
I
saying?
hear that.
You know,
Hmm.
because as long as I've been in it, you know what I'm saying, I actually know pretty much, you know, where that avenue can lead them. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And it can be and it can become an institution, just like Dante's was an institution. It's the only
Right.
place known all over the world that people came just to hear the musicians sing. You know, we got
Hmm.
people we got people from all over the world that come back every year, and we knew them. You know, and when they showed up, you know, they showed up to support. You see,
Yeah.
and it's kind of a shame where the local population didn't really support it. It was a
Right.
population from everywhere else in the country and around the world.
Right. Right.
So
Right.
that's pretty bad.
Right.
But the thing about it is, I hope we get as musicians and some entrepreneurs that maybe have some venture capital to actually think about that. Like you said, if they need resources, they can come talk to me at any time. As far as strategies and stuff, do something like
Right.
that.
Right.
Because it's something that's needed now. At one point, it was just so underserved, but now it's actually needed. So,
Right.
and now that we're on this lockdown thing, uh, it's even needed more because people want to come back out into the world. And as musicians and as people, period, we're social beings. We have to be around each other.
That's
Uh,
right.
if uh, if uh, if you think that, I mean, do you think that the music that you create with your group and everything, do you think? I don't know if your venue has it shut down permanently, or do you know at this point?
Well, well, they're saying that they want us back and stuff when they start operating at full capacity. So that's where we're at. The
Okay, so you
drums are still there and stuff of ours is still there because they like the having the appearance of
okay,
live music. So that still gives us hope that that they will have us back. They're
okay,
saying they will have us
Mhm.
back. So
okay.
I'm hoping so. Yeah.
Because I looked at some articles that were written recently about some well-known places around the country just closing up because they can't
Right.
handle the
Right.
continued, you know, being closed
Yeah,
down.
it's sad. Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty bad. That's why I was wondering, uh, coming back, what kind of chances do you think we have? Is it going to take another 2 years before it actually bounce back? I kind of look at it that way, simply because of the way things are going now. You know, uh,
Well, the quicker that vaccine gets out there and people feel comfortable, I think that their their patronage, their customers will come back. They, and some people still go there. Like they've opened, they just are not operating. They're
yeah,
operating at about 50%.
right.
So as people feel safer about going there, I think they'll come. We just gotta. Well, the customers have been asking for us, missing us. I get texts and calls sometimes from people that used to be there all the time to see us, saying, "Man, we sure miss you guys, and we want you guys back and stuff." So hopefully they see some value there, you know. But that, even though we played there every night, it wasn't a jazz dedicated place. It was definitely a place to come here, and some young musicians came, but it's not quite the same as like Dante's or Churchill used to be, where it's about the music happening.
Right.
Uh, or just jazz or something. Yeah, so we were kind of a fixture, even though we played like we were playing hard and whatnot, but we still were kind of like, you know, like the vase on the wall. You know,
Wow.
except for the people that came to hear us, you know.
Right, right.
But to the
Right.
restaurant, yeah. So anyway,
Uh, Vaughn, anything else you need to add?
No, man. Like I said, this is an impressive podcast this evening. I'm quite, like I said, and I'm impressed with the brother. He's, when he said that, when he got to the point where he was talking about the differences of the two, and stated, just to quote Gil Scott-Heron, he said, "Is that jazz?" He had me. He had me right there. I was like, "Oh, I'm sold." But I mean, you don't, you really, this is a wonderful situation we're in right now, and I'm quite pleased and overwhelmed every time Edwin and I get together and do these, because this is a pure and unadulterated piece of education for me. I've been a jazz fanatic ever since I was like 15 or 16 years old, and so it's and I keep learning, and I'm absorbing everything that comes my way, and now it's like we've done at least 30 of these things, and I have met some of the best and most and well-versed people in this craft I have ever known. And he's sharing this with me, and I feel special about that, because it lets me know what I started as a teenager is still part of me, who I am as a grown man now. So it's not anything I'm ever going to stop doing. And this platform is part of me now, and I want to do as much as I can to put it in a place where people like yourself, Louis, and the Joe Jennings, and the all the other ones that we've had a chance to meet, and young younger musicians especially, be able to tap into this and say, okay, you guys got it. We know where we have to do. We know where we need to go, and it's about tapping into the energy and the culture and the past
right.
to keep this stuff going. So that's what's special to me about being part of this. And
Hmm.
so this won't be the last time we have you here, Louis. I'm telling you that right now.
Okay. Okay. I enjoyed it, brother.
Oh, no. I mean,
Have me on anytime.
yeah. And when we get back to being able to go out and have concerts and stuff, it definitely. See, I have a lot of things to do in 2020 that we had on the roster. Uh,
Yeah.
your name came up. I said, put them down. A lot of other people that I knew of that I know I had contacts. So we were planning to have all you guys exposed to what we were doing. So, and we still are. We just having to retool it for a virtual situation
Right. Right.
until we can get back into the live thing. So we are always, Jazz Matters has always got a platform for you to come in and do what you do. That's just the way it is. And
I appreciate what you all are doing.
but and
Definitely.
it's not a thing where we exclude any musician or any group. Uh, of course, the organization is jazz based, but we also look for people to, like you said, give them information, give them the exposure, give them whatever it takes for us to keep the music going. Uh, uh, there is no venue, so we have no choice. Well, Jazz Matters has taken it up to where we got no choice. We got to make it happen sometime, you know.
Amen.
And the thing is, like I said, people like yourself and other musicians I know that have been playing, and they need to be known. They need to be heard all the time. I have to keep it to where you guys are exposed to the city, in the world, that and what you're doing, and the things you're looking forward to. So, one last question:
Hmm.
what is the? Are you working on anything solo wise, or with your group, or anything, any new projects recording wise, or that you're gonna probably have, you know, put some time into to get it out there so that people can find out who you are, where you are, and how to get to it. You know, do you have
Right.
anything you're working on at this point?
Yeah, I have two projects that I'm working on. One is my own. I want to do another album. You know, it's about time. The last one was 2015 or 14. I can't.
What was the name of it? And is it, can people still get a hold of it?
Yeah, it's
Is that
called
the one that
Triad
was in 2016? Yeah, Triadic
16. Oh,
episode.
yeah. Hmm.
Is that it?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yes, that's the one.
yeah,
Yeah,
2016. Yeah.
2016. Okay.
hmm
Yeah. So it's time to do another one.
I'm cheating right here. I'm cheating right here.
Oh, okay.
I guess.
Uh,
Yeah, Bart is just checking you out to make sure you tell the truth. That's all.
okay. Okay.
That's
Good
cool.
deal when you're doing these. I can feel that.
So
Uh,
what else? What's the new stuff like?
okay. So the new stuff, I have two new projects. The one that's mine by myself, I kind of went through a thing in 2020, some health challenges in the middle of the pandemic. And
mm,
it kind of renewed my faith and my relationship in God, which didn't totally go away, but it got a little thin. And so
hmm
I started to walk the spiritual path a little more than I had before. And I'm doing arrangements of songs that I grew up with in the church, but in a jazz way. I wanted to record it this year, but
Awesome.
this whole uh, pandemic thing kind of put it on hold. And the other project is interesting too. There's a lot of cross genre stuff going on now, and I love it. I love cross genre.
Yeah.
So that there's this artist that she's really in the country and bluegrass arena, but she's very talented as a vocalist. And we're doing this cross between jazz and kind of country, and it works good because country is can be an acoustic type of based music too. So those two things are kind of gelling and going together. So we're gonna be recording that stuff real soon. We've been writing uh, stuff that's gonna have lyrics and maybe a broader appeal in country and maybe country pop with jazz, like real jazz stuff that we like to play and artistic, and have those kind of standards too.
Okay.
And so that's in the works too. And that one's going to be recorded probably before the other one I was talking about. So those are things to look
Okay.
out for.
So it'll be out this year,
Yeah.
later
Mhm.
this year. Yeah.
Yeah. Right. And
Okay, cool.
uh,
And who is
yeah.
the singer?
When it comes out, I will want to come back and let you guys know about it
Okay.
if that's
Excellent.
cool. Okay.
Oh yeah, that's cool
Awesome.
now.
Yeah.
All
Uh,
right.
That's it. Yeah.
but
Yeah.
but who was the vocalist? What was the name?
Her name is Leah, and she's from a bluegrass group called uh, let me get it right, uh, the Doppled Grays. Yeah,
Oh, that's
and
definitely bluegrass.
yeah, the Doppled
Yeah.
Grays,
The Doppel
and she's
Grays.
an excellent singer. Yeah,
So
her name is Leah Calvert.
okay.
Uh-huh, and so, and yeah,
Well, Louis,
it's
let
good
me tell
stuff.
you this. What I do know is this. It ain't nothing but soul.
I agree with
Country,
that. Yeah.
blues, it's
Hmm.
all soul,
It can be traced
and
right back to
it
Ray
drags back to
Charles
you
and
nowhere.
yeah,
Yeah,
exactly. So
exactly, exactly.
yeah,
Bessie
uh,
Smith,
right. That's
Ma Rainey, it can be traced
yes,
all back to them,
all the way back.
But
That's right.
it ain't nothing but soul, brother. That's all it is,
That's right.
and that's why the
Right.
blend is right there.
Exactly.
So Louis, can you let everybody know how they can get in touch with you? Do you have a website or email that you can give us and let everybody know?
Okay, well, my website has expired. I need to get that back happening. But my email address is LOUISKEYS LouisKeys@gmail.com. Pretty soon, my website will be back up and it will be louiskeys.com. I'll
Okay.
get that back happening.
All right.
But for now,
give it to them one more time.
okay. LOUISKEYS@gmail.com. LouisKeys@gmail.com. I'm also on Facebook. I'm also Louis Keys on Instagram. So those are
Okay.
other places that I have access. Yeah.
So Vaughn, let them know where they can hook you up.
Yeah, you can find me at jazzbeatsradio.com. That is the webpage for the radio station. And you can find us on the internet. And we also are on iHeartRadio. And we are also platforming on the TuneIn Radio app. We're on Apple Play, and you can find us on Android and download the app Jazz Beats Radio on either one of those services. And it's just, it's a wonderful time with what we're doing at Jazz Beats Radio. And so, even I've got my own YouTube page. You can find it at Soulscapes on Jazz Beats Radio. It's a YouTube page, and please tell your friends, tell your family, subscribe, 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 because I try to let everybody know what's going on with the music and the changes and the development of it, and just my opinion about where it's going in the future. And with guys like yourself, Louis, I think we're still going to be in pretty good shape. I think so.
Okay. Yeah.
For the next 20, maybe 35, 40 years, we're going to be in pretty good shape.
Yeah.
But
I
yeah, I
believe
mean,
that.
those two avenues right there, those two avenues would be the place to find me on the social media website.
You can always, of course, find me at yesjazzmatters.org. That's yesjazzmatters.org. Like I say, once you go there, make sure that you check us out at the Jazz Matters store. Also, we have a donation page with donations and so forth. We'll also be doing pretty soon some virtual concerts, and we hope to post those really soon. At least I think we're looking at this next month. Now, we also want you to subscribe when you see that the show is being advertised and so forth. And the biggest thing is yesjazzmatters.org. So you can find out everything we're doing and everything about us. So, Louis, I finally got you on, and
Yep.
we're going to have you back. And
Great.
like I said, I'm working on some things that I want to get you to see, if you're interested in through Jazz Matters. And
Yeah.
so we'll be talking again pretty soon. And
Great.
thanks everybody for being here. And we hope you tune in to the next Jazz Matters podcast. Louis,
Yeah.
you're the man.
Thank you.
Man.
Thank you guys for having me. I enjoyed it.
All right,
All right,
man.
brothers.
Thank you.
Peace.
Peace out.
Take care. Bye-bye.